OAM. She is the Willoughby Symphony Choir President. She has served in this position since 2008. In 2023, Wendy was awarded the Medal of the Order of Australia for her voluntary services in a range of areas, including the Willoughby Symphony Choir, the Women's Electoral Lobby, and Children's Services. Please welcome Wendy.
Myself, and I've got a table here with goodies on it. So I'm hoping, can people at the back hear me?
Yes.
Do I need the microphone or not?
Yes.
I do. Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay, well I'll just move my table.
You need to move the microphone closer.
That better? All right. Okay. First of all, thank you for the invitation to speak today. It's a pleasure to be here and to talk to you about the choir. I do intend to talk to you about other things as well, though. I thought that the choir was interesting. I thought that it would be good to contextualise that within the area of Willoughby, the the local government area. I thought it would be good to have a chat about singing and vocalising and making music. I thought it would be good to talk about the ABC, and I thought it would be good to leave you with some challenges at the end of the day. So that's what I intend to do. When I started to think about what I'd like to say, I actually had about 4 hours worth. And I thought probably you didn't want that long, so I've tried to cut it down. And I am going to sort of bounce around a bit over the way. But can I say that I'm very pleased to be standing on the land of our Indigenous brothers and sisters, the people that have been caring for this land for a long time. It always makes me smile when I go to Europe and you hear about things that are a few thousand years old and you sort of sniff and think, oh, we've got 67,000 years of history in Australia. And it's nice to have our mind taken back to the fact that this land has been cared for all that time. So I acknowledge our Indigenous friends. I'd like to start by saying that the Willoughby Symphony Choir has been in existence since 1973. We celebrated our anniversary last year in great style, and we are a significant part of the local government area and its catchment area, the broader area of Willoughby and the surrounds. When the choir was, well, I'll tell you a little bit about us. We've got about 140 members. We have a lot of work on. We're a very busy choir. This year we've done 2 concerts in the Opera House, and we've done 8. We will, by the time we do the Christmas concert, have done 8 concerts in the concourse. We do big works and we do smaller works as well. Last year we did a commissioned work by Katie Abbott, who's an up-and-coming young Australian female composer. So we are funded partly by the Willoughby City Council, but we also pay fees, so we are self-funded. We are a not-for-profit charity, and we are quite big. When the Willoughby Council, way back in the 60s, wanted to make a statement about the significance of the performing arts, especially music, in the area, they did look at what was then a number of the Methodist choirs around the district. Now they're good singers, aren't they? Because you remember Charles Wesley wrote all those hymns. The Methodists are very good hymn singers. Wesley actually said that he wrote hymns because he didn't want the devil to have all the good tunes. Anyway, the Methodist Church societies formed the Methodist Choral Society, or Choral Society, in 65. And then the council put together the Willoughby Symphony Orchestra, and we started performing together. So a subscription series was established and we were away. So by 1970s, we had the Willoughby Symphony Orchestra and Choir, we had a subscription series, and we had a significant name for performances. Interestingly, one of the very early performances was in Tarman Public School. Can you believe it? It's quite a small venue and it's sort of backwards in a sense. But anyway, that's where it was. The council, way back then, and even continuing on today, has had a vision about performing arts and the importance of the Willoughby Symphony Orchestra and Choir. And what they wanted to do was to be a major force in Sydney's music scene. The orchestra and choir back then was, and still is, quite a significant and unique organisation because of the size and because of the combination between the orchestra and the choir. So the council was quite visionary back then when it put it all together, and it was intended that we would make our mark and we would be important in the art scene in Sydney. I think that the Willoughby Symphony Choir is probably the second largest, certainly the second busiest, and probably the second most significant choir in the Sydney area. There are a lot of choirs around, but we are a big choir, we do big works, and we've got a very good name. So, having boasted about that, let me move on. We do have a relationship with the orchestra and with Willoughby City Council and with the band. I just wanted to make a point that the orchestra and the choir are sort of two sides of one coin, because you've got the orchestra on one side and you've got the choir on the other. The choir sings with the orchestra a number of times a year in the subscription concerts, but we also do our own concerts. As we've grown and we've become busier, the choir has actually engaged the orchestra for playing for us for our what we call our big sings. And we've done quite a number of big sings in the concourse now. We've done the Goosens Messiah, we've done the Seasons, we've done the Creation, we've done Carmina Burana, we've done a number of other things. This year we have done 2 concerts. We did the Armed Man 2 weekends ago with the Willoughby Band, and earlier than that we did the Creation. So we do a lot of singing and we work with the orchestra as well as on our own. The relationship, if you want to engage a choir, you talk to me and I bring 140 people, 1 unit. But if you want to engage an orchestra, you engage each person separately. So the entity of Willoughby Symphony Orchestra is different to the entity of the choir. You see what I mean? When we engage them to play for us, we have to engage each person in the orchestra separately. So it's a different relationship, but we work well together, we know each other, and it's fun to work together. We've just done the Armed Man with the band. First time we've done, second time only we've ever done a piece with the band in the concourse. We had 549 seats filled in the concourse, which is quite good. So our relationship amongst the other musical groups is very good. What I'd like to say is Willoughby has a lot of good arts resources. Now, I'm only talking about the performing arts today, but performing arts in Willoughby includes an orchestra, a band, a choir, a musical group. We have a concourse, which has 2 theatres. We have the Zenith Theatre. We have our own rehearsal room. It's it's like a box under one of the commercial buildings, but it's a council-run rehearsal room. So the performing arts have a lot of support from the council and make a rather large contribution towards the life of the local government area. As I said, the council provides some funding for us, and we pay fees and we fund the rest. Now, what I want to do is take you down memory lane. This is my box. In here, I have some things which I want to show you. I'm going to talk about the ABC now. Having been a friend of the ABC for many years, I'm a great believer in the ABC, and I hope a strong supporter. Yesterday morning on ABC Classic Music, I heard the Haydn Surprise Symphony. Now, some of you might have heard that, but you know that Haydn composed it because he didn't want people going to sleep. And so, you know, they play along and then suddenly, woof, there's this great bang of chords and music to make sure they're all sitting up. It was a surprise, it woke everybody up. And something snapped in my mind, and I thought, gosh, I can see little Wendy Cowan there, sitting in a desk at Hamilton South Public School. And way back then, that little girl was in a school, a public school, where we had the blackboard, and above the blackboard was a radio. Some of you will remember this sort of thing. The radio used to play for us particular programs through the week. Might have been a social studies program, might have been a musical program, and I was taken back, I hadn't thought of this for years, to sitting in that desk and hearing the Borrowed Night of the Bear Mountain, you know the one? Bom, 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 bom. And what we had to do as kids, we had to sit at the desk and we had to use our fingers and go bom, 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 bom. And then suddenly I realised the ABC, they used to do all these programs for us. And this was a funded public thing. So I went to my cupboard and I'm going to show you what I found. Quite a few things. Here we go. A teacher's guide to programs for infants classes. As a teacher, we got one of these every year, and then this came out of the radio above the blackboard for us. Programs for infants, a teacher's book. Oops. ABC radio for primary schools, a children's book, all sorts of things, songs and all sorts of things, isn't it? There's another one, another children's book, ABC radio, lots of music. And here are the singing books. Sing on. Oh, these were wonderful. And we'd sing with the, you know, the accompaniment coming out. Lots of songs. We got one of these every year, all from the ABC. There's another one. I just thought I'd show you those. And in addition, when my children were growing up, there was a thing called Singing and Listening. Now, it was played and recorded by the ABC, and it was played for schools, and it was from the Melbourne Kindergarten Teachers Choir, and it had lots of songs, and they would sing, and the children in the classrooms would sing with them. So I brought a couple of those to show you. There was also another one that the ABC did, which was called Songs from Play School. I've got a colleague and friend here today who's had a lot to do with Play School, and also here's some Play School craft ideas, again written and published by the ABC. So, Hey Diddle Diddle, which was Songs for Play School and Kindergarten by the ABC. I found all these in my cupboard last night. I thought, oh, I must bring those today and show everyone. Because back then, education got a lot from the ABC. This was part of our education system. So there's a lot of history and a lot of value and a lot of benefit from what the ABC has done for education over the years. Anyway, that's just a bit of a sideline of mine. Now, why is it called the Willoughby Symphony Choir? Haven't got the foggiest idea. However, if you look at orchestras, there are different kinds of orchestras. There are symphony orchestras, there are philharmonic orchestras, and there are chamber orchestras as well. Now, I think if we take our clue from there, the symphony orchestra was one which was, quote, the right size. Now, that's about 80 players. But also, a symphony orchestra was an establishment orchestra, quote unquote, and it was usually government funded. So a symphony orchestra was generally big, it generally did big things, it was generally government funded, it was generally part of the establishment, if you know what I mean, and it was the primary orchestra in a big city. So I've decided that probably a symphony choir is the identical vocal version of the symphony orchestra. Other orchestras are called philharmonia or philharmonic orchestras, and they are usually community-type organisations. Excuse me, I've had a rather funny throat. But I think that the people that called it the symphony orchestra intended us to do big works and intended us to be big, a big group. No more answer to that question, I must say. But if you think about choral music, if I could have a word about choral music for a minute, what is a choir? Well, I looked up some definitions. One was it's a musical genre. I didn't think that was very helpful, but it is a body of singers. It's a good basic definition of a group and a choir. Now there are different terms. Oh, thank you. With a choir, there are different names for us. You can call us a choir, or you can call us a chorale, or sometimes we're called a chorus. Now what's the difference? Well, a choir is a body of singers, and that's the generic term. However, a chorale usually relates to the Lutheran hymn system, tradition of hymns during a larger religious work. So we aren't really a chorale, and also a chorus. Now we've just done the Mahler 2 with an overseas orchestra in the Opera House. The last movement in the Mahler 2 is choral. So we would call ourselves a chorus in that because it's a symphony work, but it has a choral component. We would call ourselves a chorus if we were singing the Beethoven 9, because again, the same thing. The last movement of symphonic work is when the choir comes in. So we are a choir, sometimes we're a chorus, and I suppose you could say sometimes we're a chorale, but basically we are a body of singers. Choirs can be amateur or they can be professional. Traditionally, what happened was that in the early days in Europe, it was unison singing. There was only one note, anyone sang that. And it was usually plain chant that we had. Then later on, they had soloists because some singers learned how to sing and they learned how to read the music that existed back then. So you could have parts. So you got polyphony, which is more than one part. So they moved historically from one voice or one piece of music to more than one part, where you got soloists. And then as singers became better educated and they could read music and they knew how to perform, then what happened? Business took over, didn't it? And money played a part. And what happened was the composers bought in and started writing music for these new groups. And so you got a lot of proliferation of music, and you got a lot of music with different parts and different styles. So we've moved from one note right through now to choirs that are all sizes, and you even get mass choirs. If you do some of the Berlioz music, you have double choirs, enormous choirs. But we started off very simply with one note and plain chant. Now, I wanted to have a few words about what singing is. It sounds so obvious, doesn't it, what is singing? However, it's making musical sounds with the voice. Now, it's using the voice to originally imitate birds or animals or the cooing of babies and so on. Singing predates language. Language is communicative. It passes on messages. It helps us share and those sorts of things. But the original singing or making of music was, if you like, copying sounds that were heard. So it was exclamatory rather than communicative. And as time went on, of course, and communication developed, so did vocalisation, and so did language and communication. So from primitive utterances, we've gone to music in all its forms, and we've got language which has allowed us to communicate. I'm not saying that music doesn't communicate, because it does. It passes on all sorts of things. But singing is really, I found a definition which I thought was good. Voice or vocalism or voice is sounding breath. It's audible signs of life. I thought, well, maybe the other sign of life is death, but anyway. But the audible sign of life is the singing and the sound and the music. But it is sounding breath. One of the interesting things when COVID was on, our choir rehearses here actually in this hall. We were in here last night. They're good landlords too, let me tell you. But one of the things when COVID was about was that singing was deemed to be the most dangerous activity of all, because when you sing, you project at, and the breath goes at, and it goes, depending on how loudly and how strongly you're singing, it goes for 6 feet. So you couldn't possibly go into a group and sing, because you'd be spreading all those germs all around the place. So choirs were shut down very, very quickly. But singing is part of the voice, and it's part of all vocalisation. I don't think I need to say anything more about that, except I did read that as our nutrition and health improved, our body size grew. And as our body sizes grow and change, our voices change. So as men got more bulked up and big, their voices got lower. It's just a fact I throw out there. You might find it interesting, but we have seen a lot of evolution in terms of vocalisation over historical times. Now, that brings me, I did bring, as a teacher, you always take an audio-visual somewhere. So what I've done is I've produced 2 or 3 copies of things which show how we sing, where it goes, what the mechanism that is down here. And I thought I'll just put them on the table. If you're interested, come and have a look later. There's a few of them, and some of them are quite, just to hold that up, that's what we look like just there. So if you're interested in the mechanism of singing, come and have a look at these later. There's 2 or 3 of them. You may find it interesting, but this part of us here is where it all happens. We've got our lungs down here, the breath comes out, and all of these in between go to make the music. Now, moving on. We've talked about singing. I'd like to say where we sing. Singing depends on why you're singing. We can sing in happy events like weddings and christenings and ceremonies and also coronations and all sorts of things. Or we can sing in very sad things like funerals and memorial services and war memorials and so on. We can sing at the footy. Everybody sings at the footy these days, don't they? Especially the Barmy Army. and what have you, but they sing with great lust. Now, one of the things that amazes me as an ex-high school teacher is that I used to share a staff room with the music staff at one of the high schools I taught at, and it was very hard to get boys to come and sing because it's sissy. Singing, you know, it's not macho, it's not for males. But what some schools solved the problem, they had lots of girls that could come and they couldn't get boys. What the schools that solved the problem did was they got the footy team in the choir. And then suddenly all the boys thought, oh, well, if they're in the choir, well, we can join the choir too. So when I look at these choirs and groups of singers in the grandstands, at the grand finals and everywhere, I think of that and think, they don't think it's sissy at all, you know, it's not. It's a universal thing. Research shows us that in every culture on earth, there is singing. It's different, and it might be for different reasons. It might be to pray to God, it might be telling stories, it might be historic, it might be just for fun, but every tradition has its singing. So it is very significant. It isn't, it can be religious, it can be secular, it can be just good fun, and every society has it. Now, why do we sing? I've talked about that, but I thought I might give you some of the benefits of singing, because singing actually has good health benefits, and they're these. First of all, the oxygen that you get. Breathe in the oxygen, fill up your blood with oxygen, gives you energy, it's good for your health, it's good for your mind. And it's all diaphragmatic because your diaphragm's down here. It's good for interpersonal connections because there's a social element. It's not just music making. I tell the choir this, we are more than a music machine because we make friends, we socialise, we get together, we like each other's company, if we are collegial, we have a sense of purpose. So there's an interpersonal reason why the benefit that we get from singing. The third thing is something to do with, if you like, your cognitive benefits. I never thought of this. However, you can't do anything else and you can't think of anything else when you're singing. Because when you're singing, you've got to look at the music, you've got to follow the words, you've got to hear it with your ear, you have to come in at the right time, you have to count, you have to do all the right things. You can't be thinking about, what am I going to buy for dinner tomorrow? You have no time for other things. Good for your mind, because it focuses the mind and it helps your cognitive development. Also, you get a sense of accomplishment. There is a feeling when you come off a stage and you've done a performance, and it's a good performance, there is a feeling in the group, and it's a sense of great accomplishment. Everybody's talking about it, everybody's excited, and that is something which is a benefit because it makes you feel good about yourself, it makes you feel good about what you're doing, and so on. So there's a sense of accomplishment as well. And also, there's the skills development. You've got to pay attention, you've got to memorise things, you have to concentrate, you have to watch, you have to listen, you have to read, and so on. You have to coordinate with others, you have to sing loud or soft, you have to take breaks when there are no notes to be sung, etc. Also, the thing about the performing arts is, the three performing arts are dance, music, and drama. The thing that joins us all is the fact that we need an audience. You think of there's a lot of other areas of the arts, but in the performing arts, you need to have an audience. And the audience is very important when you're performing, because if there's 3 people in the concourse, you don't feel good about yourself, you don't perform as well. If there's 600 people in the concourse, boy, yeah, it gives you a great feeling of accomplishment. And that's good for us. Also, we get a sense of continuity. When you think about it, music goes back a long way. We sing music that's early periods, we sing current modern music, we sing music from all of the centuries. and there's a sense of our fitting into time, and there's a sense of continuity there. Now, I've talked about the performing arts. I'm going to give you a challenge in a minute when I finish, to come back and do some personal thinking about the performing arts. But in this local government area in Willoughby, we have gems. We have, as I said before, a huge number of different resources for the performing arts. We are very exceptional. I think that in terms of Australia, Willoughby would probably be one of the very few areas that had all the things we've got: orchestras, choirs, bands, concourse, rehearsal studios, theatre, and so on. Other than the main centre of the big cities, you might find that some of the big councils have got lots there. But once you move out from the CBDs, we would be quite exceptional, I think. And that makes us very important. It's interesting that I think that the performing arts are struggling. We are living in a time of, crisis financially for lots of people, and people are having to reprioritise what they spend their money on. But Willoughby has a great group of resources, and our catchment area, I went through our choir addresses and I looked at where they came from. The catchment area for our choir is enormous. I was going to put it on an A3 sheet, but I didn't get it done. But it isn't just Willoughby. We attract people from the inner city, we attract them from the southwest, we attract them from the north, we attract them from the northern beaches, and we also attract them from the area. You know, Willoughby is one local government area, but the catchment area is much bigger. And if we are attracting choristers from that sort of catchment area, we will be attracting audiences from that area too. So we are significant. I can boast that Willoughby Council has a great set of resources, and it's important that we maintain them. Now the question is, what do we do to keep the performing arts front of mind? Now, what I mean by that is, how do we get people and councils and others to be conscious that when they're doing their budgets every year, they have the performing arts to put in there too? I did a little, I was convener of the Newcastle Women's Electoral Lobby, and I learned a few tricks about advocacy back then. And what I did when the local government election was on, I collected some of the things that people said they were interested and they wanted us to vote for. So I've got quite a few how to vote cards here. And I'm going to read you some of the things they say. Listen carefully. Transport, traffic congestion, vegetation, cycling infrastructure, fly-in, fly-out consultants. Another one, residential development and high density, transport hubs, management and high density again, planning controls. Here we go. Green space, adequate school places. This one, this is a whole pile of them. But anyway, I could read them all out, I won't waste time. But there was not one mention of any of them in the Willoughby local government area that did any mention of the performing arts. So I said to the choir, we're going to have a forum. We're going to invite all the councillors. And I've talked to the mayor and some of the councillors about this, and they're on board. We are going to ask them to come one night to the choir and tell us how they can support us as a performing arts organisation and the broader area within the context of the Willoughby electorate. Now that might sound a bit radical, but we know that the arts generally are losing funding. We know that people are not going out as often. We know that government funding is reducing. We know that ticket prices are going up, and so on. Performing arts are important to us for the reason that they appeal to more than just the bread and butter issues. They are part of the inner life. They're part of our thinking. They appeal to our inner person. They tell our stories. They help us respond to life as we know it. That's a bigger picture thing than traffic congestion and other things, garbage. Someone said bins, that was their big aim if they were elected. So every time we have a concert, we invite, that's the choir, we invite all of the councillors and we offer them 2 free tickets. The very best we've ever done in getting them is 3, and that's only been once. Other than that, we've had 2. Most of them do not reply, and I just get mad. I don't want to complain because I know they're busy, and I'm busy complaining, but I actually think that it is important that the bread and butter issues like traffic and all of those things which councils have to fund, they're all important, but so are we. And we are on a different dimension, and we appeal to different things in people and for people. So there is a challenge I'm going to give you as I finish. I've run out of time, I think. And this is I'm going to give you one of these each to take away and think about. This is a personal questionnaire regarding the performing arts. 4 minutes and I'm finished. How important are the arts to me, and what is it that I value? Secondly, what areas of the performing arts do I personally support, and how? Thirdly, are the performing arts universally valued? There's just a good question. 4, are the performing arts elitist, and what exactly does this mean? 5, are the arts in decline or just changing and expanding? Just on that one, the arts are changing. We're getting a lot more different types of things as demographics change and youngsters come in and want different sorts of concerts and so on. And then I've asked, is the supporting demographic declining? Who should be responsible for the arts? How should the arts be funded? Should it be user pay or grants or other? And what role can individuals play to best support, maintain and grow the performing arts? A lot of questions here, a lot of homework for you all. However, they are good questions. I'm nearly finished. How should governments at all levels prioritise the performing arts when facing existential competing issues like housing, transport, etc.? That's a key one, isn't it? That's a key one. And at a local level, how can I raise awareness about the performing arts in Willoughby and access to the resources that we have? And the last question, do we need to have a different approach to selling concert tickets to that required to sell ice creams or groceries? Now, I threw that in because when you think about buying an ice cream or buying your groceries or buying some furniture, the choices are different to deciding whether you're going to a concert. I just throw it in. I thought it was clever, and I thought it was a good question, and it raises some issues. Yes?
Look at it this way, things like our groceries and all those things are things people would go for automatically because they're basic needs. But when you look at performing arts, choose to go and see a concert, it's not a basic need. So it gets back to what you said before about, you know, times getting harder financially. Like, I mean, as a busker or should I rather say street performer, I mean, during the COVID lockdown or the period just after we came out of lockdown, people were throwing money at me because they were so happy to see a live performer, even if it was on the street.
Yeah.
I mean, now that things financially are so much harder, I mean, our government's trying to force us to go cashless, which is a big gripe of mine, but I'm not here to talk about that today. But I think it's more, do I have enough money to go to the theatre?
I think you're right.
And getting the concerts out there, you know, it's thinking of strategies of ways to reach people that you wouldn't necessarily reach through the old mediums of the newspaper or putting up a flyer around a shop. You have to be so versed with social media these days to reach the young kids, like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook.
Yep. All the things. Well, you can all add that to your answer when you get to. I'll pass these round. I only do this because I think it is important that we think about it. And we always expect that other people will have all the bright ideas and will do all the heavy lifting. But these days, in the performing arts, I think we all have to do our bit. So take one of these and just give it some thought. And congratulations to your organisation as you go forward, and thank you for the invitation to talk